Carnegie Public Library Oral History Program, interviewing Donald D. Townsend, 546 Oxford Drive, Wabash, Indiana, on Wednesday, 25th December 1985, and the interview is taking place at the Wabash Carnegie Public Library. Don, the first question I'm going to ask, and we'll just sit here and talk, is tell me about when and where you were born and who your parents were in the town and so forth.
I was born in Lansing, Michigan, and we moved to a farm when I was very young, and I was raised on a farm near Hastings, Michigan, which graduated from Hastings High School. And
your parents, who were they, and your dad's name and your mother's name?
My father's name was Charles W. Townsend, and my mother's name was Nina B. Townsend.
Her maiden name?
I think her maiden name was Woods or Wood, I don't know.
When you were small and growing up in that area, were either of your grandparents living?
Yes, we lived with my grandfather and my grandmother in the same house. We had a duplex and on the farm, and we lived in one side and they lived in the other.
That would be the grandparents' Townsend.
No, that was my mother's parents.
Your mother's parents,
Yeah.
And were your father's parents living also?
Yes.
Yeah. What years, when were you born, exact date and year?
May 19th, 1922.
Yeah, okay. Tell me what the farm life was like when you were little kids, and horses?
We had everything. That's the only way you could make a living on a farm, they thought. At that time, we had horses and cows and sheep, pigs and chickens and ducks and turkeys, and that was the only way they thought they could make a living. They didn't keep any books, but we lived a pretty good farm life. We had, I think my father had 120 acres at that time, and then they had more later on. So,
did tractors come in at that time, or were that?
Tractors came in about, I would say I was in mid-high school, probably. Or both at grade school, I'd say. Yeah.
What was the life itself in the farm? I mean, how did they cook? Did you have any indoor facilities, electricity?
Yeah.
And, yeah.
I can remember when they put electricity in. They had, we had wood stoves, and we had electricity, and we had bathroom, and we had inside floors.
All your life on the farm?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they must have really been progressive farmers.
Well, they were poor farmers.
Yeah. They were poor?
They weren't poor.
They weren't poor farmers.
No,
yeah.
no.
They were considered very progressive then.
Yeah.
When you graduated from high school, what did you do?
I went to work for the Hastings Manufacturing Company in their IBM department, and I worked there until I went to the service.
I forgot to ask you, did you have any brothers or sisters?
I have one brother and one sister.
And what ages, their ages would be?
They're both younger.
Both younger.
Yeah.
So you're the eldest in the family?
I'm the eldest.
Yeah, okay. You went to work for Hastings Manufacturing Company in Hastings, Michigan?
Yes.
And what was your job?
I worked in the IBM department, the billing department, which now turns into the computer department. So.
And how, why were you in the Army, or what happened? Were you drafted?
I was drafted. I waited for them to come get me, and they did.
What year was this?
1942.
1942. And what transpired in your Army career? Where did they send you for training? And
at first I decided I'd join the Air Corps. I took all the tests, and I passed everything down to the eye exam was the last thing. All these written jobs. And that eye chart was very small. And so I just waited. My dad told me to enlist in something else. They want mechanics and, bombers. You could wear glasses and so I just waited till they sent me my draft papers and went down.
What date in 42?
It was in November.
November 42.
November.
And where did you go for training?
Induction, we went to Fort Custer, and then anybody that had IBM training, they sent them to Fort McClellan, Alabama, for a 6-week basic course.
And
The rest of my company went to Washington, D.C., lived in a hotel and worked on IBM equipment, and I didn't want to go for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
That was a bad mistake.
That was one mistake.
That was the first one.
Well, what did they? What was the training like? You had basic then at Fort
Yeah, they gave us 6 weeks of basic.
at McClellan.
Yeah, and
Fort
what they
McClellan.
offered me then, if I would stay on, I could be on the cadre, that's instructors.
Mm-hmm.
So I was an instructor at Fort McClellan for, I suppose, a year and a half. I stayed at Fort McClellan.
Now this was infantry
Infantry.
basic.
We had a company would come in and we'd give them all their training, and then they'd go out and they wouldn't do anything for a couple of weeks, and then they'd come in.
Were you starting to get any rate or rank or anything by this time? In Fort
I was a
McClellan?
sergeant.
You were sergeant. And then what happened after this year and a half at Fort McClellan training troops for infantry? You should have everything pretty well down by this time, so what'd they do?
So they sent me to Camp Maxey, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
It's near Paris, Texas. I was down there for, I suppose, 6 months or so.
Mm-hmm.
Probably longer. And then
What did you do there?
I was an instructor at Camp Maxey. We retrained anti-tank groups or something. You know, they had too much. They always had too much of one and not enough of the other. So
Mm-hmm.
that's we retrained. From there, we went to Fort Meade.
Fort Meade, Maryland.
Fort Meade.
And what was that, a POE or?
Yeah.
And were you shipped out with a division or just as a replacement?
Replacement.
And what did you go over on? And
The Queen Mary.
you went over on the Queen Mary.
Queen Mary.
And what was it like?
It was very nice. I had charge of a gun crew. We all had badges. We had green badges, red badges. We had G badges and gun. If you were on the gun crew, they didn't mess with it. I didn't know anything about a gun, but all I had to do was make sure the gun crew showed up.
They had gun emplacements on the Queen Mary, and what were they, anti-submarine or anti-aircraft?
Anti-aircraft.
Yeah.
They didn't have any escort or anything. They
Mm-hmm.
took off.
Mm-hmm. What were your quarters like then? You obviously were going to live a little better than the
I
rest
did.
of
I lived on the, I think it was the child's quarters on the poop deck, which is the top deck.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They had bunks and everything?
No, we just slept on the floor, the way I remember it.
Uh-huh.
I don't think we had anybody.
What time of year was it you went over?
It was in the fall,
In the fall.
November.
Yeah. And what was the weather like all the way over?
It was rough,
rough.
rough weather.
Overcast all the way to... And you left from what city? POE, what city did you
New
go?
York, I think.
New York. And how long did it take to get there?
I think it was 5 days. 5 days, and they took off. They didn't have any escort or anything. They just took off on their own.
Mm-hmm.
They take evasive action. As soon as they straighten up, or they'd go the other way.
Mm-hmm.
They'd rock all the time.
Yeah. Making zigzag across the Atlantic.
Right.
This was obviously a British crew that ran the ship. Yeah.
British cook.
British cook. How many meals a day did you get?
Oh, you get three meals a day.
And how was the food?
Yeah. I never missed a meal, but it wasn't great. The wineries aren't great.
Mm-hmm. You had some kind of mess hall facility? Just to stand?
Yeah, the big mess hall.
Big mess hall. Sit down or stand?
You could sit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was the ship full?
Oh, yeah. We had them on deck and all over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we covered up.
Was there any entertainment or anything on the way over? Nothing.
Mickey Rooney.
Mickey Rooney was
Mickey
on?
Rooney. I remember he went over.
He went over with you?
He was on the thing.
Did he put on any
Oh,
shows?
yeah, he was.
Yeah. Was he an enlisted man? I can't remember.
I don't know. I just remember Mickey Rooney was on it.
Well,
There was always a crowd around, you know.
Yeah.
He's a born actor.
Yeah. I'll be done. Went overseas with Mickey Rooney on the Queen Mary, huh?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, where did you land?
We landed in Scotland,
Mm-hmm.
Edinburgh, I think.
Mm-hmm. And
We landed one night, and the next morning we were in England.
Took the train down.
Took the train.
And they figured it.
Southampton, I think.
Yeah. And what you think?
We got on a ship that night, and the next day we were in Le Havre, France.
Well, you went right straight from Southampton to Le Havre. Okay. Obviously the D-Day had transpired, and how far across Europe were we at that time?
They were beyond Paris. I think our troops were in Aachen.
Mm-hmm.
They were just beyond Aachen.
Yeah. What time of year was it? Now, we're
It was
in the fall of 44.
Yeah.
Yeah, fall of 44. Now, are you assigned to a division or a regiment or anything by this
I
time?
was assigned to the 4th Infantry Division.
And to what division?
I was a squad leader.
Company?
Platoon leader, squad leader. They always
What regiment were you in? What company?
4th Infantry, and I don't remember the company. I really don't.
Yeah.
I think it was maybe. I thought it was B company. But I don't know.
Okay. And
Companies didn't mean to me.
yeah. Okay. Where did you pick them up in?
Near Aachen, just outside of Aachen, in the Hurtgen Forest.
Yeah. Now, they're getting ready. This is right before the Battle of the Bulge.
Yeah.
And this is your first experience, and what happens as a squad leader? What do you do?
We learned to dig a hole about the first thing, and the way I remember, we were supposed to take Cologne, but they always had an excuse, you couldn't advance. We stayed in the Hurtgen Forest for, I suppose, a month.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew maybe we'd advance half a mile one day and go back a half a mile the next, and they'd shell you all the time. That was the worst. All the artillery would be tree burst. They'd get a bunch of them. The artillery bursting on the ground, they'd burst up in the trees, and they'd get sprayed all over.
You had some pretty good holes dug in by this time.
You dig a new hole every day. You could really dig.
Yeah.
And it rained. It rained. It seemed like it rained from the time I landed in France until it got out.
No relief. You were on the line all the time.
What line there was. We got close enough so we could see Cologne at one time.
See the cathedral.
Yeah, you could look down on it.
Mm-hmm. And what happened?
Well, we were up there about a month, and they decided there wasn't too much left of the company, and they decided they'd send us back to Luxembourg for a rest. So they sent us back to Equinox, Luxembourg, and it was on the river. I don't know what river it was. The river divides Luxembourg and Germany. We sat on one side, and the Germans sat on the other. And they said, don't shoot at them, and they won't shoot at you. So we were there probably a couple weeks, and one day they came down, they started to build a bridge. We had communication back then, and they said, hey, they're building a bridge. I said, oh, that's all right. I said, no problem. Just sit tight. So they said, hey, they're bringing up ammo. I said, no problem. Just sit tight, And about 2 weeks they came across the river, a Panzer division. So we called back and he said, hey, there's a Panzer division came across. He said, yeah, I thought you'd come back now. But then you couldn't get out. They'd gone on through there. We were behind the lines about 40 miles, probably. Behind the lines, but there's the wrong line.
How many of you were in this group?
There were only 6 of us left in the company.
There were only 6 of you there in this one particular area?
When we ended up.
Yeah.
There was a company, but the company, after I think the 4th Division took Paris, and they've been pretty much on the line. They've been
What was specifically, what were you guys supposed to be doing with the Germans on the other side of the river?
They always leave somebody. They finally get delayed action, and they just left us. They left us for a couple days. We lasted, I think, 4 or 5 days, and then all our artillery pulled back, and the tanks and everything pulled back, and they thought everything was gone, so the Americans started shelling astronauts from one side, and the Germans were there, and we were still there, so they shelled us for 4 or 5 days.
How many were you left in astronauts? How many were you?
Well, there were only 6 that I
Only
knew
6,
of when
yeah. And then
I was captured. There were 6 left in my company.
Yeah. And the rest had gotten back or been killed
Most
or
of them were
wounded?
killed. They never got out, I don't think.
Yeah. How many were in the company when you were
I don't know, probably, I think there's 200 and some in the company.
Yeah.
This is 40 years
Yeah,
ago.
well, that's basically, but,
I think there are.
yeah, well, you take
But
200.
they were never at strength. I think he had
Yeah.
40, about 200.
Yeah, 200.
You're lucky to have 100
Yeah.
at one time.
So you're sitting here in Extranage. Is the town pretty well flattened by this time?
It's pretty well gone.
Yeah.
By the time the Americans get through with it,
Yeah.
when the Germans, it was pretty well flattened when we got there.
Yeah. Was our artillery fairly accurate? They're no more accurate than the Germans.
I don't think so. You don't know. You can't. You don't go out and look around.
Yeah. Well, okay. Here, are you? Well, what was your emotional state at this time? With just the 6 of you left, and
We thought we had it. We were in a basement. We got in the basement, and they knew we were in there.
Mm-hmm.
But they wouldn't come in and get us because they're going to get hurt if they come in. So they'd come around every day and tell you to give up, give up.
That was the Germans telling you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So finally they started digging,
Mm-hmm.
and some of them could speak pretty good English, and you could wonder what in the world are they digging? Digging outside, you could hear them.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, they said they had the place, mined, either come out or it comes down.
Uh-huh.
So we went out.
Yeah. Who were the 6 of you in this? Were you the highest rank?
I was the ranking officer in the company and didn't know it.
You were what?
I was a sergeant.
Just a sergeant, and everybody else was underneath you, the other 5.
Yeah.
Okay. Of course, I think that agree or disagree that the Americans and the Army and that think that we can lift the whole damn world anyhow. So your mental state was probably pretty good, I'd say.
Yeah. You don't eat for 4 or 5 days. You don't have any. Just what we took in there.
Yeah.
It gets to you. I mean,
You get hungry, yeah.
killing you all the time,
Yeah.
and you're afraid to go to sleep.
Yeah.
It gets to you.
Yeah. So they tell you that they've got the place mined. They have this building where you guys are hiding in the cellar.
Mm-hmm.
They have it mined. What date is this?
This would be just before Christmas.
In 1944.
Yeah.
Okay.
The war ended 45, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, 45. So, as the ranking non-commissioned officer of this company now, do you have a meeting and say, let's, you just told them what to do?
I think we better go out now.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any worse than to get buried,
Yeah.
Because they're all so brave. I mean, that thing comes down on you, you had it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I'm not sure they had it mine. They
Mhm.
might have been bluffing.
Yeah. So, what time? Daylight, I assume, if you're going to go out in daylight,
Mhm.
with your hands up, and what happens? You must be hungry by this time, too.
Yeah. So, the way I remember it, they were kids. They were the Panzer Division. They were fighting with like 15-year-olds, and you know how they are. They're going to shoot you.
Mm-hmm.
So they lined us up against the wall, and they were going to shoot us. I can remember that. They were a little honked off anyway, the way things were going. And then finally an officer hollered, said, hey, that's what I think you should do. What's going on, So they took us back and interrogated us. Shipped us across the river, into Germany.
So,
Put us on a truck and took us back into Germany.
this name, rank, and serial number didn't go then?
They thought we were an anti-tank outfit. We'd lost a bunch of tanks. couple of medics that got shot.
But you had to convince us that you were infantry.
No, we never did. He never said we were or weren't. We just, I remember they wonder how we got so many tanks. Told them we didn't know.
So back across the river into Germany from Luxembourg, into Germany, and a truck.
Mm-hmm.
And where do you go?
We went to Limburg, Germany.
And was there a camp there?
There was a camp there.
Prison camp?
It was near a railroad yard.
Mm-hmm.
So the bombers would go over in the daytime, and there's always bombs that hang up evidently, and that's what they do on the way back. They kick them out, try to hit this rail yard. About half of them are at the camp.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we were there. I don't think I was there. Maybe 2 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm. It's with the camps marked or anything like that?
They were supposed to be. They said that makes the best target. You know, tell them you want Red Crosses on. They say that makes the best target you can find. So I think the camps were marked. I don't know.
Yeah.
You need so they could recognize it from the air.
Yeah. Was this low-level bombing then that they were doing?
No, they'd be pretty high.
Pretty high stuff,
yeah. But that's what they all said it was, and I guess it probably was. They say they hang up. They don't always go out.
Yeah.
So that's what they do for recreation on the way back. They
try to hit a rail yard.
and the rail yard was right next to the POW camp.
Yeah.
It was sharp enough to know they're going to do that.
When you get to the camp, is there a regular camp structure there then?
Yeah.
How many basically large camp? Or?
I think it was one of the largest camps.
Yeah. All Americans or English, Dutch, French?
I don't know. They keep them separated. They don't give tours or anything.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I know, they were pretty much Americans.
Mm-hmm. So then were you assigned to a camp, to a barracks or whatever camp? Or?
We had barracks.
You had barracks, and you were assigned to a barracks, and
That was it.
yeah, and there was a guy that ran the barracks, the ranking non-com, or
I can't remember that anyone had ranks.
yeah,
Not like Hogan Terrace or anything.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
yeah,
They kept them all separated, non-coms, officers, private.
yeah. Did you have bunks and?
We had a bunch. All there.
How was the food then? The war was getting pretty rough by this time.
They didn't have much by the time I got there. I was only there, I suppose, maybe possibly a month,
Mm-hmm.
and they put us in boxcars and shipped us to Poland.
Mm-hmm.
So,
What, you remember what part of Poland it
yeah,
was?
I went to Stargard, Szczecin,
In Poland.
in Poland. This part of Poland, I'm sure.
Yeah. And what did you do there?
By the time we got to Poland, the Russians had started their winter drive,
Mm-hmm.
so they started walking us back. And we walked, I think we walked 20 kilometers a day or something like that. We walked, every day.
Now how long were you in this camp in Poland?
Oh, I suppose we were there maybe 3-4 weeks.
Yeah.
Not very long. I've never in a camp very long.
Which, again,
Toured
you
extensively.
toured extensively.
Yeah, they had theirs.
Yeah. And how was the food there?
They were running out. They didn't have. They had few rutabagas,
Yeah.
and by that time they were running out of fuel, so they were using horses to move their supplies. And these fighter planes would come over and do strafe these horses. So they drag a horse in every now and then. That was a big treat.
That's something to eat.
Yeah.
And that was even a treat to you, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't think, I really, looking ahead, say to your grandchildren or great-grandchildren, what was one day in the life of a prison camp like? What time would you get up in the morning?
I think we got you up fairly early. I think you had to get up. If you did stand roll call.
In other words, they would count heads every day.
Yeah, like Hogan Terra, they
Yeah.
shine flags right here, so when you said, then they started a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's bitter cold over there in the wintertime, especially up on the boulders.
Yeah. Now, did you have your old uniform, or
You
you using prison clothes then?
yeah. They gave us actually have like blue French coats, like KG, I think, on the back. Keep the fungus in it.
Yeah. Now, was the clothing adequate?
No.
The shoes or socks? Or no long underwear? Yeah. Okay. Then you would get up in the morning relatively early, before daylight, or?
I think so.
And roll call, then breakfast?
They might have coffee, more bottle coffee.
That was your
That
breakfast?
was a breakfast.
Yeah. Did you drink it?
Oh,
Yeah. And then what would you do? And then the lunch?
yeah.
Sleep usually?
Try to stay warm, color out.
Yeah. And,
It was anything.
did you have a heater or a stove or anything in the bed? But you all of you were allowed to congregate in your own beds and do what you wanted to. But you weren't allowed outside the bed?
No, in the wintertime, you didn't want to go out, really. Yeah, I was never in there enough to I spent most of my time walking.
Yeah. Would you get lunch then in the prison camp?
Lunch, I don't remember. I think they skipped lunch.
So you had a cup of barley coffee. You must really be hungry by dinner.
Right.
And what would that usually consist of?
Oh, I think you get soup, right? Really baby soup.
Yeah.
A little barley in it, maybe. A little horse meat, maybe.
If you were lucky.
Yeah. If they drag your horse in, you could cut the horse up yourself and why don't you cut on the horse. You get your whole you cook it if you like to the only way you cook it.
There was no way to cook there, no climate stoves or... Did anyone have any communication with the outside? Did anyone really know what was going on in the
Just
war?
what they told us. They told us that what great things they were doing.
Yeah. Okay, the Russians are moving through Poland, and they decide to evacuate you to another camp, or why didn't leave you to the Russians?
They didn't want the Russians to get us for some reason. You could hear them. They were close enough so you can hear them every day. You hear their artillery. You could get away if you wanted to go. Where are you going to go if you don't speak any Russian? You don't speak any German. It's in the dead of winter. So as far as getting away, you could get away. You'd sleep in a barn, and you'd sleep in the prisons were all, so they might put you in a big prison for a couple of days. Then move you in.
How many of you were on the move?
Oh, it's hard to tell. I don't know. They double file. I suppose they'd string out for half a mile.
Did you have guards?
Oh, yeah, they put different guards on you every day.
Did they have horses or trucks
No,
or
they used to walk.
motorbikes?
No. They were having it pretty rough at that time.
What was the population? The people on the countryside, what were they doing? Trying to avoid you, or?
You didn't see me. I didn't know. They weren't out.
And what were you doing for food? Was it foraging for food?
It's still about the same thing, barn soup and little horse meat.
They kind of kitchen along?
Whatever. No, we didn't have to kitchen. I don't know where they got it.
Yeah. But then you sleep in barns and abandoned buildings and old prisons and jails and so forth. What's the physical makeup of you by this time? Have you lost weight?
By that time, I think I weighed, like, when I got out, I think I weighed around 80 pounds.
How much did you weigh in the room?
Probably 140. You could reach around your legs. I remember that.
Yeah.
Of course, you didn't take your clothes off. It was so cold. And
Well, you were walking 20 kilometers, roughly 12 miles a day. Did you get breaks at all along the way? Toilet breaks and...
toilets, they said toilets, the way I remember. But that was...
Most of the guys you're walking with are Americans?
The only thing, they had Russians, their Poles up in Stargard, in the same camp. I never did. staying in the same camp, in another camp. They were over the other camp, so you could see them.
And how long do you walk? How many days are you going to walk?
I only walked from, like, probably it was the end of December, middle of January, until war was over.
In May?
Yeah, it's quite a ways across there.
You only make it 12 miles a day.
Yeah.
Did you just...
And you wouldn't walk every day. They might put you in a barn for a couple of days. They put you in a big prison, and they be in prison for a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
And they took us back to near Bremen. I don't know where it was.
Okay, we're continuing what we were talking about.
Mm-hmm. We're back to Bremen, and I might have been in that camp about as long as any place.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a little bit like Holy Spirit. We were in with a bunch of Canadians that had been prisoner of war for 5 years, and they know all the ins and outs. By the time, and I suppose we were there probably a month in this one camp, and finally the British liberated us. They came up one morning and said, "I say, old boy, who's in charge here?"
And you knew that was all over then?
Well, pretty much. And so they came, said, "We'll be back tomorrow." So I don't know where they went. That's the way they did things. They never do it today. "We'll be back tomorrow."
Mm-hmm.
So they came back with some food the next day. They came back the next day. So I lived with them for probably another month. They gave me British uniform, a British tam, and all the bits. We stopped for tea every day, and we lived with them. So then they took us back to England. Went back to England. They didn't know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
We were back in London, and I stayed in London a month or so. And finally, one day I decided I wanted to go home, and they said, "Well, there's an LST leaving today."
Mm-hmm.
So I got on the LST and I came home.
Came back to the United States?
Came back to the States.
Yeah.
That was a month on that thing.
On the LST?
That was a landing ship tank, black flat bottom, the whole bit. We had an extra bunk. I came back with them.
Uh-huh. Well, how long were you prisoner in there?
I was a prisoner from mid-December until the war ended.
In May?
Yeah,
Yeah.
long enough.
Yeah. What was, when you got home, what was the reaction from your family and everything?
They were happy. They were happy to see me. Like when we were liberated, they gave us cards to send home. They hadn't heard from me all this time.
Mm-hmm.
They gave you a card to send home to your parents.
That was the British gave you that card?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And how long did it take to get back?
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah. But then they knew that you were alive and safe. And
I think the only thing is I didn't sign it. I made it out, but I never signed it. But they knew.
They knew the handwriting.
It was just a form card. You said that I'm well or I'm wounded or
but you forgot
whatever.
to sign it.
I don't think I did sign it. I think I just made it out.
What was, in talking to your parents, and I'm assuming they both lived through this experience and everything else,
Mm-hmm.
What was their reaction all the time you were missing?
Well, they always said they thought I was lucky enough to get through it.
Mm-hmm.
But they never heard anything. I just reported missing in action.
That was it?
Yep.
Never that you were a prisoner, nothing else?
The Germans would give you cards, but I don't think they ever mailed it.
Mm-hmm.
They'd let you ride every so often.
And
Just something to do. I don't think they ever bothered to mail it.
Conversely, you never got any mail either.
No.
So you didn't know what was going on.
No.
What was your during this time now? What was your mental state? Sometimes feel like you were hopeless. And
So I think hunger was the worst thing. Anyone that says they can't lose weight, they're talking to the wrong guy.
Yeah.
So I know you can lose weight
If you don't eat.
if you don't eat and you exercise.
Well, that's quite an exercise program you were on. I'll say that.
And I lost weight. I could reach around my legs like that, 2 hands.
and cover your whole leg.
Yeah.
When you got back, where did they send you to a hospital? Have you checked out or anything?
They gave me a delay en route. I came home and I was home I think I was home until August. I got home in May and I was home all summer.
Uh-huh.
And so then finally after that, they decided they'd send me to Asheville, North Carolina for recuperation.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to Asheville. We were down there about a month to recuperate.
Mm-hmm.
I had enough points to get out.
Mm-hmm.
And so they called down one day and said, "You have enough points to get out," or something. They said, "No." They said, "Where would you like to go?" And I thought, well, I've never been to California. Send me to California. They said, "You don't want to go to California." They gave me a railroad ticket, and I went to California for I was out there a month, and then finally one day I was called down, and they said, "Hey, you have enough points to get out." I said, "Yeah, I knew that." So they said, "You want a ticket or the money?" I said, "I'll take the money." So that was the end of the war.
What rank were you when you were discharged?
I was still a sergeant.
Still a sergeant.
They don't advance you enough. I didn't get paid for a year.
Didn't you? How much pay did you finally
I
get?
think I had $700 when they paid me.
That's all.
Yeah, but that was a lot of money at that. They finally decided to pay, and all of a sudden I had more friends than I ever knew I had in my life. So here they had all my back pay, and I think it was like $700 they gave me all at once.
Yeah. And
That was a pile of dough back then.
didn't they come along later then and give you $3 a day or something?
I can't remember the figure.
I don't know whether they gave
Extra?
Yeah.
I don't think so. If they did, I don't think I would.
Well, did the state of Michigan have some kind of a bonus or anything like that? Nothing.
They did for veterans, but I don't think we had anything for prisoners of war.
Anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Has that experience? Is it still with you?
Oh, I think about it sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been 40 years.
I was amazed.
You better erase it in 40 years.
Yeah. Do you think it's left you with any health problems?
Oh, my stomach is so bad. If I overeat.
Did you pick up any habits of hoarding food in bed or something?
No, there wasn't any way to hoard it.
There wasn't enough to hoard, huh?
No.
Yeah. Did you go back to Germany when you went to Europe?
Mm-hmm.
Did you go any of the places where you were?
Yeah, we saw Mannheim, and we saw Koblenz.
Uh-huh.
Koblenz was flat when I saw it before. They built it all up again.
Did you recognize any of the places
No.
that you walked over?
No.
Nothing. Yeah. And I presume all the prison camps and everything are gone.
I don't know.
I'm sure they didn't keep those.
I don't think they did. I don't know.
It was quite an experience.
Mhm.
It was really quite an experience.
At least I can say I was overseas.
Yeah. Do you belong to any prisoner of war groups now?
No.
No association?
No.
No, any particular reason? They just don't care.
I just don't care to.
I know they're all
I'm
over.
just glad it's over.
Yeah.
I don't talk about it. You don't. In fact, after 40 years, you don't find too many people that are interested.
Mm-hmm.
I have a son-in-law in California that he's very interested in wars and all that. And he did a lot of research, and he came up with the company I was in and what happened in Echternach and knew where the kitchen was. And
I'll be darned. Well, that's quite an experience to go through wintertime. I wouldn't imagine it'd be too bad in the summertime, but the
I
wintertime.
don't know.
Yeah.
It was spring by the time we got back. It was when the war in May.
You never kept anything of your confinement, your pass, or a piece of clothing, or anything?
I think my sister has my British uniform. Maybe I don't know.
When you got back out, then did you have any problems making adjustment into civilian life and going back into? They
just didn't think you should have problems back then, the way I remember it.
Mm-hmm. They didn't have a psychiatrist sitting
No,
in every
no,
corner waiting
no,
for you
no,
and
no.
talking about it.
No. You just got out, you should be happy you're out, and
Still alive.
that was it.
Did it take you long to put your weight back on?
The way I remember it, then I think I put it on in a hurry. It was flab, you know, but you eat all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You put on a lot of flab. Yeah.
Would you say that the Germans were relatively humane in their treatment of prisoners?
For what they had at the end of the war, they didn't have much, you know. They were getting bombed day and night, and they treated their soldiers like non-coms or officers didn't work. You didn't work. They might send you out on a detail to get wood or something, but you didn't work. You had a group you supervised. You didn't work. That's one of their big things.
Mm-hmm. They like that rank.
Oh yeah.
Had the
Yeah,
privileges.
yeah.
And
That's one thing they stuck to.
And they carried it through. In the
Oh
Second
yeah,
World War.
yeah. If you were officer or non-commissioned officer, you didn't work.
Other of the prisoners that I talked to all became good card players. Did you play cards at all?
I don't remember we had any cards.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
No Red Cross packages?
Oh yeah, we had, but I don't think there were cards in them. I don't really ever remember cards.
Mm-hmm. Did you get homesick at all on Christmas, or you was pretty young?
Yeah. I don't remember being homesick. Of course, you didn't know when Christmas was, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any religious services or any chaplains in there at all? Nothing?
None that I remember.
Sunday was just like any other day.
You didn't know what it was. I never did. They were all the same. You didn't get a day off.
Either that or they were all off.
Well, if they're going to move you that day, you moved. They didn't say it was Sunday.
Mm-hmm. The countryside pretty well devastated when you went
Right,
back over
the towns were.
flattened.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any problem with the civilian population, the Germans coming at you or anything like that? Nobody bothered you. Just let well enough alone, huh?
Well, they had a lot of prisoners anyway. I mean, you weren't a novelty. You weren't a novelty.
Mm-hmm.
Nope.
Well, Don, I think this has been a rather interesting interview. Now they're going to type it, send it to you, you correct it, spelling, whatever we want to, and we'll send it back and
Okay.
put it in the order.
I don't know what they would sue me for, but...
On this? Nothing that I know of.
No, you said that's what you said. Can't sue us.
They can't sue us, that's right. They better not try. This is George Dingleby.